Hey storyteller, did you know that what occurs between the scenes in your novel or short story is just as important as the actions and revelations that happen within the scene? If your scene transitions aren't smooth, clear, and compelling, readers may find them jarring, boring, or even confusing. Welcome to this week's writer coaching session, where we'll discuss what your scene's transitions need to accomplish, where to place them, including one spot you may not be expecting, and how to write them in a way that compels readers to keep turning pages. Hi, I'm Bridget from B Squared Writer Coaching, an author, editor, and your story coach, here to help you make your story powerful, polished, and publishable. Before we get into today's video, which is, by the way, part 3 in our series on how to write powerful scenes, I have a gift for you just for visiting my channel. My free workshop, 6 Essential Elements of a Powerful Story. Whether you're figuring out how to begin or end your next scene or polishing up the transitions in your entire story during the editing phase, your goal is the same: to make sure your story is as strong as possible. This 25-minute video workshop helps you do so, with tips on how to ramp up your characters, plot, setting, conflict, and theme, along with how to write all this in a way that makes readers feel like they're living the adventure of the story with your characters. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/workshop. That's the letter B, the number 2, writercoaching.com/workshop to access it today. And be sure to stick around to the end of today's video for this week's Power Up, a super practical action step you can use right now in the story you're working on. So what do we mean when we talk about scene transitions? A scene transition takes readers and characters to a new time, location, or viewpoint. Transitions can also be used to show a character's change of heart or frame of mind, as well as shifts in the tone or mood in the story. Transitions help us show moments in a character's life or day that may otherwise be difficult to portray. For instance, if a story takes place over a span of years, readers don't need to know everything that happens in the characters' lives. However, they may need to understand the passage of time between significant events or the progression of smaller situations that may have led to something important. So we can use scene transitions to skip periods of time or change to a new location, skimming over events that happen between the scenes. How long should transitions be? Well, they can be as short as a single word. How is that possible? Consider this one: later, or they may be a little phrase like later that night. They can also be as long as several paragraphs, but we shouldn't extend them much beyond that. If a transition is too long, it risks becoming an info dump or a large portion of telling that prevents the reader from remaining emotionally connected with the story. Let's examine the various purposes for using scene transitions. The information contained in a transition will depend on the reason for the scene change and how the current scene relates to the previous one. For example, you might have 2 scenes in a row that are a continuous portrayal of the same event, but the second scene shifts into a different character's viewpoint or perspective in order to continue showing this event. In this case, the transition won't need to focus as much on the time and place. Since it's picking up right where the previous scene left off, there isn't a time jump, and likely the location will be the same as well. Often, these types of transitions will pick up in the next sentence in a conversation. However, if your scene switches to a different character's point of view and an event taking place in another location, the transition must make the setting clear. The timing of this scene in relation to the previous one needs to be evident as well. Does it take place, for example, at the same time as the event that occurred in the previous scene, just with a different character in another location? Does it happen sometime later? Using transition words like meanwhile, that night, 2 hours later, etc. can help. If the viewpoint character remains the same between 2 scenes, the scene change will occur because of a major shift in time or location. In this case, your transitions should still identify your viewpoint character just to make sure the reader knows we are still in that character's head, but setting details need to be the strongest emphasis in the transition. Scene transitions can be used to do the following: advance the timing of events, change location, change viewpoint character, skip unimportant events or time periods, slow the pace, break the tension, create or shift the mood or tone, provide description, or create a smooth flow between events. When and where should we use scene transitions? Every time one scene ends and a new one begins, some form of transition is needed. Chapter headings and scene breaks within chapters will clue the reader in that some kind of shift is happening, but the narrative needs to reveal that as well. Especially these days with the rise in popularity of audiobooks, we need the actual text of the story to reveal that this change is taking place. Readers who are listening to audiobooks won't see the blank line or symbol that acts as a scene break. A scene's or chapter's opening opening transition needs to identify place, time, and viewpoint character. Most transitional information is usually placed at the beginning of a new scene, but the ending of a previous scene can also hint at an upcoming change. New chapters often require stronger transitions. However, sometimes a chapter ends with a cliffhanger, and the scene continues in the next chapter. In this case, the transition at the beginning of the next chapter can be more brief. However, it still needs to reconnect readers with the viewpoint character, location, and event in case readers have taken a break between chapters and return to the book a while later. Sometimes transitions join forces. One of the most powerful transitional techniques is to combine the ending of one scene with the beginning transition of the next. When a writer ends a scene with a teaser of what is to come, the scene in which that hinted at event occurs may not need as much detail in its opening lines. At the very least, that teaser ending and the opening transition of the next scene will grab readers and pull them into that anticipated event. This technique can also be very effective if you hint at an event in one scene and that event doesn't take place until later, whether you have a single scene between those two or several. Maybe you're switching to a new viewpoint character and showing what's going on with that person between hinting at the event that's going to happen with the first character and actually paying that event off for the reader. Minor transitions may even need to occur during a scene. This is the unexpected transition I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Sometimes a character's movement to a new location happens on stage, so to speak. The reader has a sense of moving with the viewpoint character, so no scene break is needed here, because no time is really skipped while the character is switching locations. For instance, the character might be in the house for the first part of the scene and walk outside for the ending of it. You wouldn't need a scene break to show this happening because the reader can walk through that door and down the steps into the yard with the character. These transitions may be only a couple of words or a few sentences. However, if no transition is included, the author may be guilty of what I like to call teleportation syndrome. The viewpoint character seems to just teleport or magically appear at the new location, and this change can feel jarring to the reader. Are you finding this helpful so far? If so, consider clicking the like button so YouTube will show this video to more writers like you. There are several types of scene transitions we can use. Narrative summary is the most common type of transition, either to a new scene or within a scene. Without using dialogue or detailed on-stage action, the author condenses events, the passage of time, or a change in location into a brief description of who did what and when they did it. This type of transition can provide important details without the need to expand the information into a full scene. However, use narrative summary with care and avoid telling the reader what's happening instead of showing events taking place. Too much narrative makes a scene feel more like a list of facts than an actual story. The second type of transition we can use is a change in point of view. If a story is told from more than one character's point of view, every scene needs to reveal the viewpoint character's identity right away, whether the previous scene was in the same viewpoint or a different one. Make sure to match the transition's tone to the new viewpoint character's personality and mood, as well as using the appropriate language style and word choice for that character. The viewpoint character's personality and perceptions should color everything in the scene, especially the transition. Even if a scene isn't switching to a new viewpoint character, it is still important to remind readers whose perspective they are experiencing. A few ways to identify your viewpoint character include naming the character during narration, identifying the character through his or her dialogue attributions, like Mark said or Jill asked, naming him or her through another character's dialogue or action. Caution though, if you do use this method, be sure to clarify that the original speaker or character mentioned is not the viewpoint character in the very next paragraph if you're using dialogue, or in the next sentence if you're using action. Identify the true viewpoint character by using his or her internal monologue, indirect thoughts, or internal physical reactions. What do I mean by all this? Well, let's say you're using dialogue and maybe the dialogue reads, "Jill, what do you think about this?" Mark asked. If that's the opening line of your scene, you want to make sure the reader doesn't think Mark is the viewpoint character. So the very next paragraph, you may have Jill's answer, or you may just show what she's thinking or feeling. You might have Jill's chest tighten because this question causes an emotional response within her, and then she speaks. Or you can show a direct thought, which would be in italics for her. The third type of transition we can use is transitioning to a new time or location. You can establish a change in setting by naming the place. For example, once Henry reached the stables, describing the place. Dust glittered in the sunlight filtering through the stable doors, for example. Using an aspect of the setting to prompt character action. Henry ducked his head to keep the cold, stinging rain out of his eyes and ran for the shelter of the stables. So you can see his actions there. We know it's raining and he runs to the stables. That's an action that he is using to get to that location for shelter. Mentioning the time of day, date, season, etc. Using transition words or phrases like later, that night, after finishing the dishes, etc. Showing a character doing something that was previously mentioned in conjunction with a set time or place. Example, a scene starts in the middle of a particular competition or sporting event for which the protagonist has been training. If details about the event have already been mentioned, readers will know where and when the scene is taking place. Another type of transition is a change in tone or mood. If the mood or tone shifts in a new scene, that should be established very early. While transitions can be used to change the tone, they can just as easily maintain the tone. For instance, if your story is humorous, keep your transitions funny as well. If your story's tone is dry or sarcastic, use dry or sarcastic transitions, within reason and where appropriate, of course. Remember, a scene's tone should also be appropriate for the viewpoint character. If you have one character who's experiencing events that lead to depression, the tone should be pretty dark and dour, whereas another viewpoint character may be happy, so you want that tone to be lighter. Just as a quick reminder before we move on, if you haven't done so yet, be sure to grab your link to my free workshop, 6 Essential Elements of a Powerful Story. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/workshop. For this week's Power Up, examine the opening of the current scene you're working on and ask yourself the following questions. Does it clearly identify the viewpoint character? Is the location clear? Does it show how much time has passed since the events of the previous scene, or clarify that this event is happening at the same time as the previous one? Does it maintain the tone of the previous scene or convey a shift? Either can be good depending on the needs of the story and the voice of your viewpoint character. And note, be sure to look at the closing of the previous scene and examine how it flows into the opening of the new one. Does it feel smooth or jarring? Does the ending of the previous scene give readers a compelling reason to move to the next one? How do these two scenes relate to each other? The transitions we use can also depend on what type of scene we're writing and the type of the scene that comes next. To explore 12 types of scenes your story may include, check out this video. And for more videos in this series on how to craft a powerful scene, check out this playlist. And let's power up your storytelling.